What's happening? Big C. This morning I have a viewer's email question. How would you recommend staging a TCP for everyday carry? Also, I hear with practice, twisting the screw. I can't even read my own fucking writing. Twisting the screw on the clip comes naturally. I've seen you with a TCP on a few videos, but you never talk about this. So first off, very good questions. I always appreciate you guys sending in questions, and you're right. I haven't put out tactical content on the TCP. I think the less lethal defense compensator has been my only video directly discussing the TCP. So first off, being you asked me my opinion, these are only my opinions. Also, I literally just ordered a Grimberg TCP holster to try out, so I will be dropping some in-depth content with the TCP once that comes in. Now, regarding this inquiry, one, don't let gun guys hear you call your magazines clips. I'm a 90s motherfuckers too, so I get it, but they don't like that. There's a few things that I consider with the TCP, and this also includes the FSC. One major consideration is size. Yes, TCP is acronym for Tactical Compact Pistol, but I really think Pepperball compared, or should I say contexted this in comparison to the VKS or the TAC SA, because this is definitely not a compact pistol, especially in the configurations that a lot of LL builders set up their TCPs and FSCs, and I am no exception. Here on mine, I still have, of course, the LLD compensator on this. I still have this big ass Fiachi torch on this. I still have an RMR on this. And unfortunately, you know, with the TCP and with the FSC, furniture only serves to add more girth to a launcher like this. This is, in its present form, would be more of a traveling vehicle pistol for me. This is not something that I would try to run as an on-body EDC, unless, of course, I was wearing this OWB, outside waistband. But once that holster comes in, I'm going to be stripping this down to a minimalist configuration for on-body EDC, as in no more compensator, no more big lights, right? No extended barrels and all of that shit. Honestly, I prefer the FSC smoothbore barrel over the Pepperball barrel, especially since I'm only concerned with round KI projectiles. Now, of course, one big problem is the detents. TCP has metals, FFC has rubber detents. But honestly, I prefer the flush fit of the FSC 4-inch barrel. Now, on to one of the most important things that we have to consider, the CO2 engagement process. So to begin answering your question regarding how I would stage my TCP, I am not one of those guys who's going to wait until the shit jumps off to engage this CO2 cartridge. Of course, the benefit of a traditional firearm is that there is no puncturing or twisting of knobs and screws and all of this extra shit. You just switch off or squeeze past the safety and go pew, pow, or bang, right? Even with the BYRNA, yes, the BYRNA lacks the power and the modification availabilities of the TCP and of the FSC. However, a BYRNA does have the advantage of being able to pierce directly off the trigger. Yes, I am an advocate for the TCP, but in my opinion, the TCP screw-in CO2 engagement system is neither ergonomic or efficient for rapid response self-defense. And I say this with the understanding that the TCP is basically an FSC branded for self-defense. Therefore, in essence, this isn't a system based off self-defense. It's based off paintball. Yes, it may be labeled Pepperball and marketed for self-defense, but mechanically, this is still an FSC with minor differences. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, this twist to puncture system, it's not really a hindrance when we're talking about pre-anticipated defense scenarios, or even a scenario where you have time and opportunity at your disposal. But I really think that it's time for both Pepperball and First Strike to kind of move away from this, or at least introduce an alternative option. An extremely good example is the T4E platform, which of course started with the hex screw piercing system and then evolved past that with the quick piercing mags. Now, yes, you know, the screw-in systems are still an option, but you're not reserved to only that option. So like I mentioned before, if I chose to conceal carry my TCP, this is going to be stripped down. Now, others will say that they fully dress up theirs and have absolutely no issues. And I say that's great. Ultimately, guys, it's about finding what works for you and then becoming knowledgeable and becoming proficient with what works for you. For example, I said that I would prefer not to run a light on this for a CC EDC, concealed carry. Now, why do I say that? Because for me personally, there's going to be little to almost no scenario as a civilian where I'm going to be carrying a TCP and need to engage a flashlight. Now, in a security capacity, that scenario absolutely exists, especially if you're working night details, you know, facility or area lot patrols, even nightclubs and venues. I've had to illuminate people or even vehicles in parking areas with my weapon systems. Now, if I know I'm going somewhere that low light self-defense may become an issue, like, say, a movie theater, or maybe I'm routinely having to enter a dark lit parking garage after work, then of course, that's where situation awareness comes into play. Therefore, yes, I'm going to mount a torch on this. Situations dictate tactics. Another example, I'm definitely not going to run like this, the Grimberg 8-inch barrel, you know, sticking out like a fucking Ruger MK on this. I'm just not a big fan of having that pressing against my abdomen and my crotch. Now, some guys out there may not see that as a problem. Okay, good to go. But you always want to consider comfort of carry and efficiency of getting this weapon into play, which is why I like the FSC's barrel length, because I want this thing as compact as possible if I'm going to conceal carry EDC this, especially depending on your body type. Are you someone who a unit like this is going to sit more flush at the waistline or at the hip line, especially if you have a little extra padding in areas that a launcher this size may not play as well with? Are you trying to conceal for actual concealment, as in you want this to be as incognito as possible, or are you doing it just for legality of not having it exposed, as in you're not really concerned about printing or fluidity? If you've ever concealed carried routinely and with consistency, you should already know that it's not as simple as throwing on a holster and dropping in your weapon. You really have to find a holster that works with both you and your weapon and your physical makeup, as well as one that works to make employing that weapon as fluid as possible. Okay? Try haphazardly, you know, sitting down somewhere, appendix carry with an FSC or a TCP or even a BYRNA. And you will definitely understand the relevancy and rationale behind what I'm trying to tell you. And this works the same with a traditional firearm as well. And going back to, you know, the Grimberg and other custom barrels, just for a moment, you know, Grimberg, Labco, all of these manufacturers offer barrels in the stock TCP length. Now, in regard to the longer barrels, I do understand there are power gains running the longer barrels on these particular launchers. Tremendously effective when you're building a home defense TCP setup, or especially an HPA FSC setup. The bore match benefits of the Grimberg barrel with Jules or even Canada Riot Balls, for example, undeniable. But the chances of me getting into a 25 to 30 foot engagement with my TCP out in public is highly unlikely. I definitely don't have any grand delusions of getting into a shootout against a real firearm. Perhaps in some less lethal fantasy land, maybe, but not in the real world. if I'm going to be drawing this and putting shots on, it's going to be within that 10 to 15 feet at its most extreme, dealing with either a close proximity or an advancing threat. Plus, I rely much less on big jewels to stop a threat at close range anyway. Another point of contention is the ability to reliably fire off chemical rounds at 40 to 50 joules. So I pretty much am going to stick to KIs with something like this and leave the chem options for, say, the BYRNA. Plus, if my life or physical well-being is in jeopardy, or my family's well-being, all bets are off. Headshots, face shots, throat, groin, it's all to the good. I have already reserved within myself to go to that level of violence, and I'm fully prepared to accept the legality and liabilities of that later. But let me be clear, that is not something that I'm encouraging or advocating for anyone watching. Those are decisions you have to make. So yeah, a minimalist setup with this is going to work just fine for me. I don't even need this RMR, to be honest, especially if I'm looking for a no frills, less shit to worry about setup. Fiber sights, I'm going to probably switch these out to fibers, and that's going to work out probably as an even better option for me. Another point to consider is the scope of public carry and a possible public engagement. I love these in all black, but companies like Pepperball, companies like BYRNA showcase these in yellows and oranges for a reason, primarily and specifically to be able to readily identify this as a non-firearm. And again, these are only points for consideration, not me shunning or advocating for one color over another. Now, in regard to your question about actually engaging the CO2 on the TCP or the FSC, as I stated earlier, if you find yourself with time and opportunity on your side, you know, getting this out and twisting the knob and turning on your laser or your RMR and all of that shit may absolutely be no problem for you. Me personally, I don't even want to risk setting myself up for failure like that. And trust me, some of these guys telling you how easy it's going to be, I'm going to also trust that's coming from a place of real life experience, or at minimum, training under stress and pressure, because what I've seen and experienced with criminality and violence, there's a whole lot of variables that can turn this little screw and 100 gadgets into an absolute fucking nightmare. Things like fear and adrenaline and shock and distraction, you know, the pressure of an advancing attacker. All of these things can directly affect your motor skills and reaction time. In fact, there is a very high likelihood you may end up fumbling with this screw, or possibly fail getting the weapon out in time altogether. Under pressure, people drop their weapons, people get it out, but forget to hit the safety. One thing I would suggest is first employing situation awareness, not situational, situation awareness, as in evaluating your route, evaluating the environmental makeup of your destination, and then tailor both the setup of your weapon and the way you need to run this weapon accordingly. Now, me personally, if I think there could be a problem at any stage of the game, I'm going to pierce this CO2 beforehand. That's right. I said I am going to pre-pierce this CO2. No different than paintballers do. Look, guys, first off, your TCP isn't going to leak out all your CO2 with your mag engaged. And in the event that you don't have to become a less lethal John Wick that day, you now have an excuse to dump that magazine on some targets when you get home. Secondly, 12 grams are not expensive. 12 grams are not in scarce supply. 12 grams do not need to be special ordered. So piercing and getting that mag hot before going into the grocery store, or before going into the movie theater or dinner at fucking country buffet tonight, it's not going to break your wallet. However, it very well may save your ass in a rapid defense scenario. If nothing else, you've got one less thing to worry about or fuck up in the process. So I'm going to take my TCP with me today because I have to go into a rather volatile neighborhood to estimate some caulking and brickwork, and then off to another job site to continue on with that project for the rest of the day. But I am not waiting for the event that I might need this to go through all of this bullshit. This is getting locked and loaded now with 9.9 gram Canada Riot Balls, and this CO2 cartridge is getting engaged right now before I even walk out of the door. All aired up, firing bolt is engaged. Riot Balls falling out as usual. I'm also doing this so when I get back home, I can dump this magazine into something to show you guys that it's perfectly okay to have your TCP hot and ready to rock and roll. So the time is now 5:17. So we're just going to say, 5:30. Okay. I'm going to hit the road and I will holler at you in a bit. Close-up shot of the downtown Chicago skyline. As I mentioned, taking my TCP around with me today. And we will see what happens when we get back home. 7:30 in the evening. This is the TCP from earlier. This is the same CO2 magazine. If you remember, a couple Riot Balls, well, one Riot Ball fell out of the barrel, so I probably have only got 4 in here. No holster, still waiting on the Grimberg holster, so for now, we're just going to throw it in our pocket. Threat. So, hit 2. No cuts or deletes, just so you guys see. We're going to reload this again. 9.9 gram Canada Riot Balls. Use CO2. So we got 2 out of it. All right, so let's see what it did. We do have some penetration holes here, and I'm going to guesstimate that was from the grouping. Maybe the first shot from the first magazine, definitely probably from the grouping. The second one, I was a little more deliberate in my shooting. Hitting someone in the face and neck area with 9.9 Riot Balls can do the deed. I'm not saying you're always going to put someone down. I've established that I don't know how many times. But to be able to at least deter and get myself away, extract myself from the situation, or give me enough distraction to move up in force continuum, if necessary, into a bladed and edged weapon, or even go hands-on with the aggressor. So there you have it. Stage it. Get it hot prior.